I'll start the meeting.
Okay, and then you can start. Okay, great. And then we can add this on to the agenda.
Okay, let's bring this special meeting of the Newburyport Conservation Commission being held on the Zoom platform to discuss regulations and ordinance changes. This meeting's being recorded.
Okay, thanks, Joe. So, all right, let's just quickly talk about what we're going to cover today. And I think then we'll figure out where to input the question that Carol has about cumulative impacts. So first, I would suggest that we go through the proposed changes to the ordinance and discuss those because they're fewer, and the ordinances, the bigger piece. The regulations can't do anything without what's in the ordinance. That'll also have to go to the city council for review and adoption. So I think we should start there. And then we can kind of hit the regulations if we have time or schedule another meeting, but we should have time. So I'm going to share my screen and pull up the proposed ordinance amendments. You all see?
Yep.
This. Okay, let me just make it larger. All right. So I don't have the full ordinance here because everything else would stay the same unless anyone had suggested changes to other parts of the ordinance. But for Plum Island, we had discussed this 25%, 50% rule for when a structure needs to be elevated on pilings, and that there's a sort of like loophole that allows things to remain as is if an engineer can certify that the solid foundation doesn't need any modifications. And that kind of goes against the whole intent in a lot of ways. So if you all have taken a look at this, or you want to read through it right now and then let me know if you have any questions or things to bring up.
Just in number one, where you cross something out and then it looks like you put it back exactly. Is that?
Where was that?
At the last sentence.
Paragraph.
Provided that there is no increase in floor area or total footprint of structures on site, including decks. Yeah, that's just probably my cutting and pasting issue in terms of how track changes works. I might have cut and paste something into here that had already had a change in it, so track changes didn't like that. Wait a minute. Authorized to state here, and provided that there's no increase in floor area. Yeah, just ignore that and assume that the
Okay.
original. So what the how the original read is what's the original we're looking at here. All right. So what it says in the ordinance, the way it reads now, is the last sentence starting with "in all instances." It says, "In all instances, reconstruction, renovation, or repairs to damaged structures may be authorized as stated herein, provided that there is no increase in floor area, period." And so what I've added is "or total footprint of structures on site, including decks." So that goes beyond just floor area and into total footprint of structures on site.
Okay.
It just
Good.
clarifies it a little bit better.
Well, that could make a huge difference
Yeah.
if you're including all the outbuildings, I guess, or, right? I mean, for a couple of the projects we've done recently, it would have made a difference, I think.
Mm-hmm. Right. And that would include, I mean, I'd have to check on whether that it would include accessory structures. But it would include all accessory structures as well. So what there's, instead of just the floor area of the individual structure, it would go to all the footprint on site. Yeah, just makes it a little more specific.
Let's see. Now, I'm just trying to think.
This section applies only to the high hazard zones. And now say, and it looks like the intent of that is that any redevelopment would be, or repair would be no bigger than. But if you, but it, could they then, if we add this part in about accessory structures and decks, does that mean that if there was a house in the V zone and it had a 400 square foot deck, and they could take away the deck and add that as house?
Well, that's a very good question, Paul. Let's see. Analysis is renovation repairs may be authorized to stadium provided that there's no increase in floor area or total footprint of, no, because by there not being an increase in floor area, that would prevent them from taking a deck and turning it into interior space. And it would also prevent them from building out the same, let's say the same footprint of interior space, but then adding on ginormous decks and other accessory structures and features like that on the lot. So this kind of covers both.
So should we specify something like that or clarify something like that?
And there's no increase in floor area.
Increase in internal floor space, or
You could
Well,
break it into two sentences, just to make sure it's referring to the building, and then the deck, address it separately.
Yeah, I might run this by, I see what you guys are saying. I might run it by Andy Port and Jennifer Blanchet in our office, because terms like floor area tend to have already have a definition in zoning and building.
Yeah.
And it might just be simpler to leave it as is rather than try to add too much that might make it more confusing. It's already been like this. It already says floor area. And so that's
Yeah.
pretty well understood.
yeah, I don't know if we're making adjustments anyway, maybe we just want to say internal floor area or
Okay.
whatever, just to
Yep.
to
I'm gonna
clarify.
okay, interior. I'm going to, sec here. Okay. That is a question mark too. Run it by,
Yeah, and why don't you accept that deletion for the last section there?
yeah.
Since you cannot edit it right now.
Okay.
There we go. Okay. So we're looking to just remove the licensed engineer part of it.
Exactly.
Okay.
I mean, if you all agree. So what that does is it just entirely removes that loophole. You want to call it a loophole, that clause.
Okay, and again, this section is for anything not in the high hazard zone.
Mhm.
And and I believe that licensed engineer thing was put in way back as kind of a compromise between various
Mhm.
elements.
Actually, you know what? Paul, you just brought up a really point. In all areas of Plum Island, Berry Beach, outside of the VNAO zone,
Yeah.
all buildings, existing buildings with substantial improvements, horizontal smash, so building, blah, blah, blah. If a licensed engineer, that only seems to apply to areas outside the VNAO zone,
Oh, right.
which
Yeah.
would mean that it doesn't apply, that this clause does not apply when a site is within the V's or AO zone. Is that
Right.
how you would read that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because
Well,
it says at the very beginning in all other areas.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that would mean that Lisa's argument was,
was totally wrong.
Yeah.
And that
Well-
because that site is in the V zone, this license engineer clause doesn't apply to
Oh,
it.
Oh, was that site in the V zone?
Yeah. It's in the
Yeah.
zone.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Oh. Yeah, yeah, then that clause that they were using doesn't apply to them.
It might not have.
A week late, though.
Yeah, well, it's all live and learn.
Yeah,
Just to make sure we know.
Maybe,
So now you're going to want to save that
yes,
structure or
say,
at least-
definitely clarify that.
Yep, and I'm gonna.
well, yeah, all of it is pretty well clarified.
Yeah, the beginning of the,
Regs.
Yeah, if you remove it, then there's no reference to it in the V zone at all. It just, there's no such thing.
Right. And there's no such
Ye-
thing in any zone.
Yeah,
But hold on a sec, I'm just gonna see
Um,
what our regulations say.
we didn't totally approve that project, did we, in the last meeting? The one where she used this clause?
No, we haven't. No, we discussed it a little bit. It's on the next, Tom did get a, well, I don't know.
No.
I thought we
approved that.
closed it. I
That was-
can remember doing a
Yep.
a vote.
What?
Yeah.
What, Julie?
That was closed.
It was, okay.
25 Basin was closed, but I'm just looking at our regs because the regs might conflict with what that says in the ordinance, which means that all we would need to
ordinance-
do is
the
change the
ordinance
regs,
No,
not
the
change the
ordinance,
ordinance.
the ordinance controls.
The
Right,
ordinance
yeah.
controls, but because this is stated the way it is in the ordinance, if our regs are what make it sound like it would apply to the V zone and AO zone,
Yeah, then you have to change that.
then we change the regs, but we don't have to change the ordinance.
That's
Or
right.
we could
All
also
right.
change the ordinance in addition, but. So with
Why wouldn't we want it to just say in all areas of Plum Island
that- Right.
Beach? Is that just too broad?
So I
well,
think, I think what
yeah,
happened is with this confusion with 25 Basin, when they pulled this out, they pulled the language out of the regulations. And in the regulations, it does not specify whether it means whether it applies to the FEMA V zone and AO zone or to only areas outside the V zone or AO zone or everywhere. It just, it
Oh, I thought in
appears
the-
to apply everywhere in the regs. But in
Oh,
the
really?
ordinance, it's
Oh.
only outside the V zone.
oh, because when I was looking at the reg part, I thought that also had this kind of construct. That
No,
early on, they said that no development or redevelopment in a V or AO could be any bigger than.
For Plum
And that
Island,
would
and-
take, and that would take, that preceded it, the reference to a licensed engineer on another area.
the regs don't actually specify I mean, no, this whole thing about no development or redevelopment in the FEMA VRA zone is only in the ordinance. And then in the regulations, it talks very specifically about the 25%, 50% rule, but not in relation to any particular flood zone, just in general. And so that's why I think when you read in the regulations about this provision that if a licensed engineer certifies, the solid foundation, et cetera, you assume that it applies to anywhere on the island, a V zone, AO zone, anywhere. But when you're looking at the ordinance, it clearly is only
Yeah.
applicable to outside. So that's a problem with the regs.
Right, yeah, so we don't need to change any of that stuff in the ordinance.
Right.
Well, unless we want to exclude outside
Gotcha.
the V zone and the AO zone.
As well, right.
Right?
And why
Which is
why
what-
wouldn't we?
And just say it applies to all of Plum Island? Is that going to be,
Well, if you remove the licensed engineer in the ordinance, then it's that they can't use that anywhere.
Anywhere.
True. Yeah,
We have to take it out of the
But
ordinance and the
technically,
regs.
I have a feeling that that comes down to being a very political change. So if they really want, well, the city council would have to approve it anyway, but I don't know if they would.
In some ways, it might be an easier sell to just highlight the fact that the regulations are incorrect in implying that this rule about the licensed engineer applies within the V&AO zone.
Right.
Maybe that's the right way to start, is just to take care of that piece. And it makes sense, and now that I'm reading this, it does make sense that they put this in here for outside the V&AO zone, because structures outside the V&AO zone are less subject, there's a solid foundation would be less subject to harm.
Right.
Right. Mhm.
So what do you want to do? What do you guys want to, you want to leave it in here and take it out of the regs, or take it out of both?
Taking it out of the regs seems like the simplest way to do it.
Yeah,
I mean,
correcting the regs and just leaving this alone.
Yeah,
All right, let's do that. Okay, so great. I will actually then I will.
City
Reject.
council has to approve the regs too, don't they? Or just the ordinance?
Just the ordinance.
Oh.
That makes our life easier here. That's good.
Mhm.
Okay. So moving on, definitions. This is the definition of redevelopment.
Is this where it would make sense to put some language in about, well, it says a cumulative increase in the footprints.
Mhm.
Do we want to say something here about a time frame? I couldn't figure out exactly where it would best
Right.
be placed.
Well, this one, yeah, this one is actually a little bit more clear for redevelopment. Because what we can do is just a process. It's just a sort of an administrative process question, which is that after a project in the V zone or AO zone undergoes an addition to the footprint, then that needs to be recorded as there needs to be a recorded perpetual condition in the order of conditions associated with that, that says that there's no additional increase allowed beyond whatever remaining X%. And then if a project comes forward again on that property that proposes another addition, we can go back and see whether or not they have any wiggle room left, or whether they've already maxed out at their 20%. Like on the 25 Basin Street that was just permitted, they went to exactly 20% increase in footprint. And so we put a special condition in as a perpetual condition in that order that says that there can be no additional future increase in footprint on that site. So that's just like a process question, kind of a follow-up.
Yeah, but you might want to have it be somewhere. I mean, if maybe it's not well placed in the ordinance, maybe it has to be in the regulations, but I'm just thinking for future commissions, or, or
Mhm.
if you've, God forbid, left, other people may not know that was.
Right,
Yeah,
but it already says in here cumulative, so I'm not sure what we would change.
Okay.
Do you know what I
maybe
mean?
just a statement in every one of these projects when we're doing the special conditions that that's it, like you did on the perpetual one on last week.
So we could say something here, right? Like, once a structure has added 20% additional footprint on the lot, there may be no future additions allowed on the site, or something like that. Something like that.
Probably
Eh, eh.
something like that. As far as, can something like that be added to what you see in the online system to a property?
Mm.
Can
Right,
can-
like as a note to applicants kind of thing.
Right, because if you go and look on, in my map, you can look up permits, like Conservation Commission permits and whatnot, and can it be listed in there,
Mm.
directly for anybody to see?
Yeah. We're working on our online permitting system for Conservation Commission permits right now. It's a little tricky, but we are flagging, we are able to flag properties for different reasons. So we could have every property in a V or AO zone come up with a flag. And maybe there's a way to input like a % increase in footprint remaining on lot kind of thing. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah,
Yeah,
just something that's available to anybody looking.
Yeah.
To make
Right.
things easier.
Right, because it is easy to lose track of these when years and years go by, new owners and things like that.
Well, it also put a new owner on notice that, the limit has been reached or close to
Yeah,
being reached.
I think a new owner or somebody in the process of buying a property would want to know that maybe they
Yep.
were thinking of adding on, and if they see, oh, I've only got 2% left, I can't do what I want, they might not buy the property.
Right.
Right.
Right, yep, that's a good point. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna talk to Diane, our office administrator, about it. She's working with the database regularly, and we can find out if we can add like a line on the database where we can put in anytime one of these projects in a V zone or A zone is permitted with an expansion, we can put in what % expansion they have received and what's remaining. I'll talk to Diane about that. I think it'd be super helpful. Because otherwise it is you have to go back and look at all the previous permits, which I typically do. I can look them all up now and see whether or not they've had an addition put on and what the percentage that they added was. But that's really only works for projects in sort of recent memory that are part of our database and that have
Mhm.
adequate plans on file. A lot of them that go way back don't have that. So it's harder.
Yeah. No, that would be good to have that easily accessible.
And as far as future database, I guess the way it'll work is we could only take it back so far as seems possible.
Yeah, well, we have the data we have, and
Yeah, so that's it. So
Well,
that'd be,
and but now this proposed change to the definition of redevelopment actually totally eliminates the 20% allowance. So that within the V zone or A zone, you couldn't add on any square footage. And this will be really controversial and a difficult piece to sell to the council and to people who live on Plum Island. So it's something
Yeah.
that needs
Although it's already there,
yeah,
isn't it?
that's what I'm thinking is it's
Yeah.
already there.
what do you
Yeah.
mean?
It's already
Well, under the
says,
specific performance standards, that part 1, I think it says no development or redevelopment. And no increase, let's see, redevelopment implies no increase in size.
Well, redevelopment allows a 20% increase. So that's why we're looking at the definition of redevelopment, because it says no development or redevelopment shall be permitted in the V or AO zone. And then if you look at the definition of redevelopment, it's only includes anything above a 20% increase. So anything below 20% increase in footprint is actually still allowed. And so this change to the definition of redevelopment would eliminate it.
Oh, okay.
entirely. And that would mean that that would mean this 25 Basin Street project, absolutely not, no addition
Right.
whatsoever to the footprint. And that is what would be very, very difficult to sell to
Yeah.
council, to public. So that's something that you all we could start with just, trying to put something in that makes it easier to monitor people's increases up to 20%. You could try to reduce it from 20% to 10% in those zones. You could provide some sort of incentive, like, you can go up to a 20% increase if the entire structure is elevated on pilings. There's, different ways to handle it. But it's something to think about. And we don't have to decide it today.
No. No, we really can't decide it today.
But as you've proposed changing it, it would eliminate the 20% completely.
And that's just for discussion, not something that I'm in any way pushing or that the commission should push. It came up last spring as a proposed change and didn't go over so well. It was very.
Oh, that was part of that. Oh, okay.
Yes, it was very heavily misinterpreted as well, but that's why it's in here still as a proposal, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's something that you want to propose.
Well, it'd be interesting to know, if it's not too hard to figure that out, how many projects are we talking about that have gone up to that limit?
It's a lot. I mean, we just had one, went right up to 20%.
Right?
The expansion on Plum Island is happening all the time in these zones. And
Yeah, it seems like everybody is very close to 20% when they come in with their numbers.
Yeah,
Mhm.
That.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, if we are going to try to get this through, I think we have to have some statistics to make the case why it's important, because otherwise they might just say, oh, it can't be that widespread. And then you could say, well, yeah, it kind of is.
Yep.
I mean, I don't think it hurts to try, unless you guys, I don't know if somebody has a read of the current city council as it's now constituted of, I mean, if there would be no hope of getting it through, then maybe we don't, but.
And there also has to be a good justification. So the commission would have to be able to say, well, this is why we don't want any additional expansion of footprint in this B zone or A zone, because sea level rise, they're high hazard flood areas. Is it for public safety? Is it for people's personal safety in that structure? And in that case, maybe it's their choice. They don't mind investing an additional amount of money in a house in the V zone or AO zone. At what point? And so, I mean, I think this was in here, this allowance of 20% was in here in the first place to give people some sort of like, well, I own this property, I should be able to at least expand it a little bit. You can't take away all my property rights kind of thing. So anyone who owns a house on Plum Island in any particular lot in these zones gets to have this additional 20%. But that's it. That's where it stops. So maybe everyone in the V zone and AO zone ends up building out an additional 20% onto their lot, but it will only go that far. And maybe that's okay. Or maybe we want to say, well, given what we know about sea level rise right now and about increased storm damage and storm surges, we don't feel comfortable allowing or supporting any additions of footprint within these two zones. And it's just sort of a philosophical question in a lot of ways.
One thing about most of these lots is that the areas of these lots is so small that, I mean, normally you wouldn't be able to get that much of an increase. Isn't it 25% everywhere else that you have to, that your structure is, in zoning?
Yeah, so I'm not sure as much about the zoning, but yeah, if the lot is very small, sometimes they don't have even that much. They don't have that ability to expand that much on their site under zoning.
Seems
But
like everybody's just going up. They're just going up instead of out if they have a small
Yeah, that's a
lot.
good point too.
Mhm.
You drive
Yeah.
down there and every single building is built up so much.
Mhm.
Yeah,
At least to the limit of zoning.
yeah.
Yeah, I guess if somebody in my mind is foolish enough to spend the money to increase their property by 20%, then as long as they do it, if it has to go on pilings, if it's a lateral, if they're just going up, do we really care that much?
No,
Yeah.
I don't know that that's our bailiwick to care that much about something like that. The the water and sewer system has to, they're gonna need to deal with the more bedrooms and all that, and more people, but I don't know that we're more, well, we're focused on the the habitat and everything out there, so.
Doesn't it go back, though, to the point when all of this was established? I mean, I'm asking Paul more than anything that,
Mhm.
that this wasn't our design so much as this was what we were handed.
Right.
And I mean, just as you say, you don't care one way or the other, why is this in here? Why, what does the city really want to do?
Yeah,
Well, it was more what the state really wanted to do.
True.
Well, and there's now that there is, I think for me, part of the rub is that by allowing expansions of footprints in these high hazard areas, it feels a little bit like we're supporting development in areas where it's maybe unwise, where it's maybe harmful to that homeowner or what they've invested in the long run, et cetera. And that feels uncomfortable kind of supporting that and allowing that given our mission. But
Mhm.
now that we have the land subject to coastal storm flowage regulations in place, which require anyone in a flood zone to go through the steps of evaluating the impact of their project on the flood zone, but also evaluating the impact of the flood zone potentially on their project, then maybe that is helpful enough for the commission to feel more comfortable allowing up to 20%, because it's forcing the applicant to acknowledge the risks of where they're developing rather than go into it kind of just assuming that everyone thinks it's okay.
Yeah, and since we have that available to us, I don't know that this is really worth the fight.
Because it would be a
That
huge
will
fight.
be. So we can I'm fine with dropping it myself.
Just
Drop and
leaving it
change
the
it.
way it is?
Yeah.
Yeah,
just
leaving
leave
it the way it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's see. Why did I remove and or solid fence? Any committed increase in footprint of building and structure? Anyway, I'm gonna just leave this all the way it is. I think that makes
Yeah.
things easier. Okay.
I don't know if this is going to slow us down or what, but one thing that I keep thinking about is someone's used up their 50%, they've used up their 20%, or rather, yeah, 20%, and then there's major damage to their structure, the roof, anything like that. There's nothing in here that precludes them the ability to spend money to bring their roof back.
Oh, no.
You can do that
Yet,
under this.
if you go by the very first paragraph, it's you're repairing things and we're giving them more, the ability to do more. So when we preclude somebody's 20%, some people might have roof repairs in there.
Yeah, but if you go to the next page, underneath note 1, there's a whole list of things that are not considered part of redevelopment.
Okay, so from that standpoint, that's covered, so
Yeah.
no issue. Got it.
I think it is. Yeah, I think that's right. All right, so the next change was just an addition of the word unenclosed on number 6 in what Paul has just said in note 1, the terms development and redevelopment shall not include. And then if you go down to number 6, construction, repair, or replacement of unenclosed decks on open pilings with at least 2 feet above grade to allow sand transfer. So why did I put in unenclosed decks?
So they didn't make a 3-season or some other,
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, but that would mean that if they had an enclosed deck already and that was destroyed by a storm, does that say that they could not replace that?
Yeah, I don't know why I would have changed that. I think for now, let's just remove that addition until I can remember why.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I think it probably has something to do with what Joe just said, but
Mhm.
kind of,
Okay, so let's go down to the next one, 15. So development and redevelopment would also not include replacement of an existing building on a solid foundation with a new building that is placed on open pilings and that is located as far landward of the existing building as possible. Given the requirements of Plum Island Overlay District provided that some of blah, 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 blah. The new building complies with all applicable federal. So why did I add on a solid foundation? Because it wouldn't matter if it was replacement of existing building on pilings with a new building on pilings, that's also okay. So
Yeah.
let's just take this out because that's irrelevant. All right, then that's it for the ordinance.
so really just a couple little cleanups.
Little cleanups, and that's not a big deal. So that one could be done in sort of a regular ordinance kind of cleanup thing for
Yeah.
the city council. All
Mhm.
right, we don't have to worry so much about the ordinance, which I'm happy. Should we move on to the, are you ready to move on to the regs?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay, let's do that. I'm gonna do a new share of this one. All right. So here we go with the regulations. And on this one, I edited the actual version, the whole document itself. So it'll be really easy to see where we're at here. Let's just scroll down. All right. The first potential change is in the definition section for habitable living space. This comes out of our recent issue on 25 Basin, where they argued that the basement was to be considered living space for the calculation of the 25% increase in living area. Even though our definition says that it should not include basements, Lisa Mead was saying that because this particular basement was finished, they would call it living space and be able to use it in the calculation. I think on Plum Island, we don't consider basements living space because most of the islands in the flood zone. And you know, this would just be clarifying that basements are not included in the calculation, even if finished.
right.
What do you think? It's up to you all.
Yeah, I need to be convinced that we should, remove that because, folks are using it as a living space. I have a little bit of heartburn with that, but
Okay.
if, I'm one
Okay.
vote, so.
So you're saying that if a basement is finished and people are using it as living space, then legitimately it should be included in their calculation of the increase in living
I think so, if they're,
Okay.
the thing's not gonna get, if they're in a area where it's not gonna get flooded, then it's, or even if it is, it's still, they're
Okay.
using it. So I don't
Okay.
know what anybody else thinks about that.
Well, how about saying if finished? Basements if finished. If it's not finished, then don't include it.
All right, so let's see, this is finished areas of a house or building, which area ceilings are at least, it does not include porches, even if garage, how about we put unfinished basements?
Yeah.
Or unfinished basement areas,
Yeah. Yeah, because a basement might be only partially finished.
Right.
which is what was that 25 Basin? That's what it was.
Right.
Okay, so unfinished basement area. I like that. That's much more clear. Unfinished basement area. Wait, so it's finished portion, blah, 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 does not include porches, garages, sheds, unfinished basement area. Okay. And attics. It does include. Okay, that's good. All right, let's move on. I don't know why these are just highlighted for grammar, I guess, but not actual changes. That's a typo.
Go on, fix that spelling.
Okay, this was for general application requirements and procedures because things have changed over the years and we now get everything electronically. We don't need 10 hard copies to send out to you guys. So makes sense to change this. So submission, I changed this paper copies. We need 2 hard copies, 1 original, 1 copy of the application, et cetera, et cetera. And now the application materials are due actually 12 business days prior to the meeting, not 10 business days. So clarified that. And then I created a new section that's titled digital copies. All application materials must be submitted in digital PDF format in as small file size as possible. PDF application and all related materials should be uploaded to the city's online permitting system or sent by email or Dropbox to the conservation administrator if the online permitting system is unavailable. It is recommended that the application materials submitted are submitted as a single PDF document if possible rather than separate pieces. For example, DEP forms there. I might take out this piece about how the PDF should be submitted because that might change over time. So the PDF application and all related materials should be, I'm just going to say,
Just provided.
yeah, provided.
One thing I would like is, I don't like the recommended. I think it should be required to be a single PDF unless the conservation administrator says it's okay not to.
Okay.
It's easy enough to do it all in one piece, and I get kind of aggravated because I got to go in and download 8 different files to look at them.
Yep, that makes sense. I do too. Okay. Are people happy with the way that is now?
Yeah, that's okay.
All right,
I'd put the caveat in there unless the conservation administrator
okay.
allows it.
Also rather than separate pieces,
Well,
unless specifically allowed. Agreed to.
Yeah,
But yeah,
Okay.
by the administrator. Yeah, and I would get rid of the commas if possible.
Okay. Okay, I like that. All right, now under site inspection requirements, so that's all fine. Digital submission of plans, I just eliminated that because it's irrelevant now because we're already asking for everything digitally.
Mhm.
We go down to plan requirements, and instead of 8 of the 10, I said 1 of the 2 paper plan copies, maybe 11 by 17. 1 shall be full size unless otherwise agreed to by the conservation administrator. That's all pretty straightforward. Then we get to Plum Island. Site plan, project site plans for notice of intent shall include the following: elevation side view of the proposed structure showing lowest horizontal structural member, known its elevation to the base. Sorry, you guys want to, at the end of this, I just said at the discretion of the commission, the elevation of the proposed structure in relation to projected sea level rise elevations may also be required.
Mhm.
Everyone else good with that?
Yeah.
All right, and here we go to the 25%, 50% rule. Take a look at this and let me know what you all think. Although this goes back to what we just did.
Yeah, just get rid of the B in that last, in order to be a void.
Oh, okay. Oh yeah. I think what we just did in the ordinance was we left in this piece about the licensed engineer being allowed to certify, but only outside of the V and AO zones.
Right.
So maybe here we say, or a licensed engineer certifies, or within, if property lies within, or if property lies
Outside of.
outside, yeah.
Yeah.
Or if property lies outside the a licensed engineer and
Okay.
Yeah. Good.
Now, the next one, we should cut and paste all the language from the ordinance into that. Because,
under 25%, you mean?
no, above that, the
Oh.
raised on pilings.
Okay,
Because there's a whole section that I spent like 4 weeks writing a thing about enclosed walls because somebody enclosed their walls in other walls, so they didn't have to raise it on piles.
right.
So
Do
we
you
should
have
have that whole language should be there if we're gonna be doing that, and it's not there.
Where's the language that you're talking about in the ordinance?
It is, yeah, it's 6.528 B11.
Notwithstanding, existing solid foundation buildings shall be replaced with pylons. 50% more of exterior walls have been removed, are proposed to be removed, or will not be used as exterior walls. Oh, okay, got it. You're right. It should be replaced with exactly that language. Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you, thank you, Joe. That makes a lot of sense. I'm gonna just write that in right now. Rebuilding must be replaced on pilings if the exterior walls have been removed or are proposed to be.
Yeah, we just cut and paste all that language out of there and
Yep,
drop
okay.
it in.
Yep.
Except that first little bit.
Will not be rear walls, okay.
That was just amazing when those people did that.
Right. Right.
Yeah, you missed that one, Carol.
I guess so.
Great, here we go.
Must have cost them a lot of money to do that.
Yeah. But they didn't have to put the house on piles.
Hmm.
All right, there we go. That does it. Including but not limited to encasing an existing wall within a new exterior wall. And a new roof will be constructed or, okay, got it.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Determining space for the 25% rule. Habitable living space does not include porches, even if screened, garages, sheds, basements, and then I put even if finished. But what we really want to say is unfinished basements, like we said
Right,
before, right?
yeah.
Unfinished basement area.
Yeah.
Area.
Yeah, you can just,
attics.
reject that even if finished,
Yeah.
or may as well clean it up now.
Does not include porches, garages, sheds, unfinished business area, attics, and attics. But does include kitchens, bathrooms, hallways. Okay. For example, existing house with a solid foundation currently has 2,000 square feet of living space. The applicant proposes to build an addition on the side of her house that will add 500 or more. Then the entire structure must be raised on pilings. And then I got rid of this,
Mhm.
Mhm.
which I think makes sense to get rid of it here because it
Mhm.
implies that it would apply everywhere, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Just while we're here now, finished attic, is that counted as habitable?
I don't think an attic is, I don't think the definition of attic includes finished space. Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like it would be third floor or fourth floor or something like that.
Yeah.
yeah, because a lot of attics some are small, some like me have no attics, so.
Yeah, I just know that a lot of structures, the attic becomes a bedroom.
Yeah, well, then it would be, but then it would be a bedroom and not the attic, right?
That's what I'm questioning, is there,
Yeah.
I mean, just as we define the basement area, I mean, we could say unfinished attics.
Yeah, you could just move area to after attic.
Although, you know what, I resist doing that. Here's the reason why. Because by saying unfinished attic, you're almost asking for someone to come in and claim that part of their attic is finished and therefore they're gonna include, and you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's almost
Okay.
like leading into a problem that isn't currently a problem.
Okay,
Yeah,
There it
right,
goes.
until someone comes in with the attic that's finished, but I guess if
Right.
we want to handle it then.
Well, then we'll just say, isn't that your third floor bedroom?
right.
Mhm.
Um. All right, determining costs for the 50% rule. Appraisals and cost estimates do not include household appliances or other non-permanent fixtures. This has come up a couple times when people are saying, here's my cost estimate for the construction, and it's really low because we're not including the cabinets and the lighting and blah, 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 we're not including anything essentially. So, and what's a fixture? So right now it says household appliances and fixtures, but what's really the definition of a fixture? So I looked up what's a fixture. Fixtures are typically permanent structures in the house. So like cabinets, that's permanent. That's a fixture. But things that can be easily taken down, removed, like lighting and handles and things like that, those aren't. I don't know. I was just trying to clarify what we mean by fixtures.
Yeah, I'm fine with it. That's it's a non-issue for me.
In order to adequately evaluate the appraisals and cost estimates required above, the commission may at its discretion require a peer review.
So I was
Yeah.
wondering, do we need to specify that who pays for that peer review, or is it assumed that it's the applicant?
Well, it's already in the regs elsewhere that the applicant is responsible for
Okay.
paying for.
Sorry, I didn't see that. So
Yeah,
I wasn't
it's,
sure.
but it is in there. That's why I thought about that as well, and I didn't include it, so I just didn't want to. But we could.
No,
we all think-
yeah, that's how we do it. That's whatever that, I don't remember what section of the law that is. But we have the authority to require them to get them to do it.
Okay.
50 something.
And I guess we've proven to ourselves that the wordage of the licensed appraiser's valuation is in the right context here. I mean, it seems like from our last experience that Lisa's appraiser was consistent with the appraiser we used. I guess it's just acknowledgement of the fact that if someone puts $100,000 into a house, it doesn't mean that its valuation has gone up by 100,000. I guess we just realize that and take it.
Yeah, we got to rely on the appraiser's decision, so they're the
Yeah.
expert.
I mean, the other way of handling it is just to get rid of that paragraph, but that might be a little too.
Which one?
The whole appraisal business.
And just make it strictly always be assessed value versus
Yeah,
construction cost estimate?
somehow that doesn't necessarily feel fair either.
I know.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
it's
the
in
whole
some
basis
ways-
of this.
In some ways, what, Julie?
In some ways, the construction cost estimate versus assessed value can be even trickier to review than an appraisal because you have no idea what you hired this contractor or that contractor and they
Right.
include these costs and not those costs. And you know, I've had people come in and say, oh, I can bring that cost down because I can get my brother to give me those windows for free.
yeah.
You know, and it's just, how do you make the call and stuff like that?
But you're not suggesting taking that out altogether, are you? Taking out the our
B?
authority to get a peer review? Mhm.
No, we
No.
need to keep.
Oh, no.
No,
Are we discussing B? The costs? I'm a little confused as to what we are discussing.
I thought David was suggesting that the appraisals can be so objective and difficult to review that if we just get rid of the appraisal feature altogether and go always with assessed value versus construction cost estimate. Is that what you were saying, David?
well, what I was really saying is that I think it was an education for myself that, you know, all these people that are putting in these big additions, or not additions, but changes in their houses and so forth. Even though they're putting $100,000 into it, they're not really getting that much valuation out of it. I think that's,
At least not immediate valuation, yeah.
Hmm.
yeah.
And that's all we
and
can
we're
go by.
accepting that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I don't know, the building cost thing is, if we get rid of that, what does that do to us? You know,
Well, I mean, we could go into an area where you start bringing in cost estimators to do peer reviews and things, but it sounds like,
Yeah.
but isn't the ultimate thing is not to have the value of the house increase by 50%?
Right.
right. No, I
Yeah.
actually think that as long as we have this set up, that there's going to be a peer review, we just accept the language the way it is.
Yeah.
I'm okay with it. It's just that I was just bringing up that when we started this thing, I didn't quite believe it, but now that we've done a couple of them, it's the way it is.
Mhm.
It's weird. It doesn't seem like it makes sense, but it's weird. Okay, so let's move on to the next piece on fences. Right now, if someone replaces more than 10% of an existing non-compliant fence, the entire fence must be brought into compliance. That's number one, really difficult to monitor and enforce. And number two, I don't know, just to me, I'm not really sure that it makes sense when you think about the cost of fencing and to require someone who just needs to do like basically a small repair on a piece of their fence to require them to take the whole thing down, put up a whole new fence. That just it seems a little onerous, but I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, one thing with doing the 10% is it, you know, it's gonna limit how long you know, it's gonna take them to repair the entire fence. You know, to just repair a non-compliant fence. How are, if we have it, if we get rid of the 10%, you know, how are people, if they go to repair their fence, then they may just replace the entire fence with a solid fence.
Mhm.
Where this, it limits them, they have to do it piecemeal, and as it's kind of like the cumulative thing with you know, building a new place or adding on that, you know, you're limiting how much they can do it, how much they can do.
What if we changed repair to replace?
I'm fine with that too, but in a lot of cases, repairing is replacing. They're
Yeah.
replacing panels. So it might be a distinction without a difference.
Yeah. that's a good point.
But how do we justify the 10%? Was the 10% already there and you're talking about changing it, or I'm a little confused?
Yeah, the
here.
10% was already there. And again, I didn't, this hasn't really come out of any project or proposal that's come before us and caused any kind of problem. It's more of just, I'm in reading through this all to suggest some changes. I thought, wow, it's not an incentive for people to come forward and let us know what they're doing, right? Because if you only need to repair a couple panels on your fence, but by talking about that or letting anybody know, you have to take down and replace your entire fence. You're going to want to just kind of do that without saying anything about it. Not that that matters, 10%, and we might not see it, and no big deal, but it just, I thought, wow, that's like a very small amount of a repair to make someone take down an entire fence, like surrounding their whole property, and replace it if it's in good condition. You know what I mean?
How
Yeah,
about we change it to 25%? And
I honestly, I don't think anybody who's replacing or repairing their fence is looking at the regulations.
Yeah, I don't
You just-
either.
I think you just
Either.
hire somebody and do it. I don't think this has any bearing as to whether they do it or not.
That's true.
So I really wouldn't worry about it.
Okay. All right, we'll leave it then.
We find lots of brand new fences that
Yeah.
nobody came in and asked
Exactly.
us about.
Okay, so now lattice and other enclosures, I just added some words here saying, because we don't really like lattice and other enclosures, but they are allowed down to 2 feet above grade. And this would say any proposed lattice or other enclosures around pylons of proposed building or deck, if approved by the commission, must be at least 3 feet above grade. It just makes it clear that you don't have to approve lattice around these pilings if you don't want to.
Right, right.
Driveways, no changes there, no changes to in-ground structures. That might be it.
I think
Let's
it
just-
is,
we do have a site visit coming up shortly.
Yeah, we do.
that we
Yep.
do.
We do. So I think we went through all this but so, oh wait, minor activities outside the
Oh, yeah.
75 feet of the buffer zone. Oh, this is for the letter permit, because right now it says out in the outer 50 feet of the buffer zone, but really on like developed lots, when someone has a mowed lawn and they're outside of the 25-foot no disturb, and they want to, like, you know, put a fence around their vegetable garden. I mean, that's a letter permit thing. And so I felt like as long as they're not in the 25-foot no disturb zone, those certain activities could still go under a letter permit.
Oh, God, then I could have saved a lot of time and effort with all my stuff. with that.
It's gonna make it easier for you to do all kinds of things, Joe.
I have no more room to do anything. Yeah, I'm fine. with
Okay,
that.
all right, cool. I think we're
Since
good then.
my entire house is within 25 feet of the notice, you know, that way, so.
Okay, so and you know, go through this again completely on your own or whatever, and let me know. It would be great to have one more public meeting where the whole commission can vote on these and get them all done all at once. So
Right, we
let's
need-
include everything.
Yeah, we need to have a hearing and it
Yep.
needs to be advertised and.
Yep.
Did
so,
anybody from the public end up joining us today?
Um,
Looks like Counselor Wright is listening.
yes, Mark Wright's here.
Okay,
So I think that's it. But yeah, we can keep having these meetings if you come up with anything else and then hold the public hearing and, you know, we'll go through them all at once. So
Yeah,
let
I
me
would
know.
look at all the rest of the, we've been focusing a lot on Plum Island too, but if
Mhm.
anybody has anything else in the rest of the regs, may as well do it at once.
Exactly. But essentially they look okay, so.
Mhm.
okay,
All right, so we'll see you all at
Great.
3
3
All right.
o'clock?
Good.
out
Yep,
on Phillips
all right.
Drive. Okay,
Get a
bye
motion to
everyone.
close, get
Oh,
a motion to close the meeting.
So moved.
Second,
Second,
Roll call, Paul Healy,
Yes.
Steve Moore,
yes.
David Vine,
yes.
Carol Wagon,
Yes.
and I vote yes. All right, see you guys in a little
All
while.
right, thanks everyone, see ya.
Bye-bye.